I
All right. We are live. Thank you very much for joining this session. Um, my name is Mustapha Rufai, and with us here is Esther Agbaje, and she will be telling us more about building applications with Chakra UI. Um, Esther is a developer advocate and product manager and marketer. She leads dev relations for Chakra UI, amongst a lot of other things that she does. Um, Today, she'll be sharing with us some of our knowledge about building with the open source um, Chakra UI. Hello, Esther.
Hi, Mustafa. Thanks for having me here. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you here. Um,
Okay.
so, can you, before we start, can you just tell us a bit about Chakra UI, um, what it is, and
Yeah, sure.
how?
Let me see if I can share my screen. Let me share my screen. Okay, yeah. So, hi everyone. My name is Esther, like Mustafa has rightly introduced me, and I work as a developer advocate at Chakra UI. So today we'll just be walking through what Chakra UI is, some of the core principles of Chakra UI, and working together to build a quick demo using Chakra UI. So Chakra UI is a React component library. It's available in React and Vue, but I'm a React developer and I'll be working mainly with Chakra UI React today. So if you go to the site chakraui.com, yeah, exactly, it's on my screen. You see everything about Chakra UI. It gives you the building blocks that you need to easily create a website or a web application with speed. And by a component library, I think what we mean by a component library is, everything in React is the component, right? So instead of having, for example, I always use this example a lot. Instead of having to create maybe this button from scratch, when you're using vanilla CSS, you have this button readily available in Chakra UI and have a whole lot of other pre-built components. So let's click the Get Started button to see what we have. So the first thing is components, right? Which is like the most exciting part about Chakra UI. Let's start with components. So there are different categories of Chakra UI components. We have the layout component, which is just like the name layout, helps you to easily lay out elements on your web page, on your web app. And we have the flex and stack components. Sorry, the flex and the grid components, which are like the basic layout patterns in CSS. And Chakra UI allows you to easily use flex with stack components and easily use grid with simple grid. We also have the button components. I think every other component in Chakra UI is based off the button, the box rather, the box component, right? And the box component is really just a div. So the HTML div that you use regularly, it's the box component. And why it's different from the div is the box component allows you to pass inline styles using style props. So now let's go into look at other components that you have available in Chakra UI. So you have some components that are classified as form components, and this is where you find the button component, you find input components, and all of these components that you have here. And you have data display components. So we have a huge group of pre-built components for you. And that's why a whole lot of developers love using Chakra UI components, because why would you want to go through the stress of building maybe a model when you can easily grab Chakra UI's model component and get it working in your application? So you can always visit the Chakra UI docs to learn more about the kind of components we have and how exactly to use these components in your application. So another concept that we use in Chakra UI is the concept of style props. So style props is just a way of passing styles into your components using inline styles. So you know how props are in React, almost everything. Okay, use this prop, use that prop. So now while you use style props, you can pass styles inline to components as props. So Chakra UI provides different style props for you when you're building your application, right? So we have style props that are based on margin and padding. And while using style props, we make it even more exciting to use by using shorthand forms. So instead of writing margin when you're using a component, if you want to apply margin to a component, right, you can as well use the M as a short form for margin and P as a short form for padding. So we have style props for both margin and padding, for color and background color. For example, if you want to apply background color to a component in Chakra UI, you will just use the BG as a short form for background color. And you can always use write it explicitly as background color, but always saves time. I particularly like using short form style props, and you see it shortly when we go to start building. And we have other style props, typography style props, when you're using typography elements or heading elements, right? Layout style props. We have when you're using flex, you can always pass like display flex to a box component, or you can use the flex component in Chakra UI. So there's a whole lot of all of this in Chakra UI. And another thing I would like to touch on before going into the rudiments of how to get started with Chakra UI is the default theme. So by default, all Chakra UI components have the way they look, have the way they look and feel. For example, when you use a Chakra UI button directly, importing button from Chakra UI and using it, there's a way it looks, right? This is what makes it Chakra UI. And all of these styles, I would say, they are coming from the default theme objects in Chakra UI. So we have default theme objects that have colors, right? So we have a theme object containing all the colors in Chakra UI. So if you want to use like a gray color, there are different shades of gray. Same with almost every color you can find, right? We have red, we have orange, and a whole lot of other colors. And the same thing you have for maybe typography sizes, right? We have font sizes that are already in form of, let's say, design tokens, so to say. So let's just get started now. I think that is all I have on my slides. Let me just go through my slides. Yeah. So let's go into installation first, and then we go into our Vite project. For today, I'll be using a Vite project, right? And I already have installed Vite, and I'll be installing Chakra UI. So let's go back and backtrack a bit into getting started. So when you land on Chakra UI's getting started page, we have, like I said, NPM version, YARN, and PMPM version of how to get started, the installation command. So I use YARN, and I'm going to use YARN today to install Chakra UI. But whatever framework you're working with, whether it's Next.js, whether it's Vite, whether it's Remix, Redwood, whatever framework or platform that you're using, we have framework guides that you can always check out to have the explicit direction of how to get Chakra UI started in your project. So I'm going to be using a Vite project right now, and I'm going to use yarn, and I'll just copy this command, yarn add Chakra UI React. So now let's go into building. Now that we understand, have a brief understanding of what Chakra UI is and how to use it. So I'm going to start off my terminal in VS Code now. I hope you can see very well. It's not too,
Yes, yes, it's
yeah.
visible.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to install Chakra UI now, and let's give it some time to install. While it's installing, let me show you what we'll be building out today. We'll be building out some parts of this Notion AI landing page. I particularly love using Notion. Notion is like my day-to-day tool when I'm working every day. So I use Notion a lot, and AI is like the new thing, right? Everything is about AI these days. There's Chat GPT and AI. So I was like, okay, let's build out the Notion landing page, right? We're going to be building out some parts of the page, not the entire thing, because we have just a few more minutes left. So I'll quickly run through how to build the header, how to build this hero section here at the top. And then this is an interesting section, and we'll wrap up this demo, hopefully we're able to get here how to build this grid layout using Chakra UI. So let's go back to um, our VS Code. It's installed Chakra UI. And after installing Chakra UI, after running the command yarn add Chakra UI or whatever that you whatever command you use, the next thing you need to go is to go to your whether it's main or JSX, or to go to the root of your application. You want to make sure that you put the Chakra provider around your application. And remember earlier I talked about the default theme that Chakra UI comes with, that every component has the way it looks, and this is coming from the default theme. So if you do not wrap Chakra provider around your app, you realize that even though you are using Chakra UI components, it's not giving you the look that you want it to. It's not looking the way you want it to look like. So we are going to import Chakra provider. We're going to import Chakra provider from Chakra UI and wrap it around app. So this way, every component that we're going to be using, the Chakra provider acts as like a context that passes these styles down to every component that will be rendering in our application. So right now, the installation step for Chakra UI is complete. We've installed Chakra UI and we've wrapped the Chakra provider around application. So we can get started to building, right? So let's look again at our page that we want to build. We notice that if you're starting with our header, right, we have a Notion logo on the left and we have the button on the right. So looking at this instantly, I can tell you that I would be using the flex to lay out these two elements. So I'll be wrapping this element and this element, or this component around. I'll be wrapping flex around them, and I'll be applying a justify content of space between them, because there's a space between them, and align item center, because you see that they are center aligned, right? So let's go ahead to build this out now within the header component. So in source directory, I'll be making a components folder. Another thing I want to mention here is in this file or in this project, I've gone in to add some data that I know that we'll probably be needing. When you're working on an ideal scenario, some of these data will be coming from an API, but I'm not working on an API right now. So I have this data.js, and I have my icons, all the icons that I will be needing for this demo in icons.jsx file. So I've gone in to create this. So I'll be getting the Notion icon from one of the icons here. I have it, the Notion logo here is right here. So let's go ahead to build out the header component in header.jsx. It's going to be a named export. And I mentioned that I'll be using the flex component from Chakra UI. So let's go ahead to import flex from Chakra. Now, flex has been imported, and we know that we have the logo on the left, the button on the right. So let's grab the logo. I think it's called Notion logo. I'll be importing it from my icons file, and I'll render it here. And then we're going to grab the button component from Chakra UI, and I think the text is join the wait list. So I'm just going to put this here, join the wait list. If I can spell wait list. Okay, so I have it here, and to see what we have, obviously we need to export this in app.jsx. So let's go ahead to render header in app.jsx. So let's render header. And then we start our local server, and I run yarn dev to start my local server up. Okay, so let me bring this down here. Okay, so this is what we have here. Let me just put and arrange my files. Okay, so this is what we have here, and it's not looking pretty at all. There's a whole lot of things that we can clean up. The first thing that we should clean up is the size of this logo and then the background. from our design, we know that this background is a black background, right? So let's fix this. So we go into app, we're in app already, and we want to put a background color on the entire app. So we're going to import box, which is going to serve as a container. So I'm just going to modify this right now. Put this at the top here and move header into box. Let's just render header again. Okay, now that box is covering our entire header, we can go ahead to add a background color there, right? And say BG of black. So, okay, box is not imported. So we need to import box from Chakra UI. It's not imported. So now that's imported, we can see that we have a background color of black. And then another thing we notice is, okay, let's do it one by one. So next, let's go into header.jsx to fix the Notion logo that is so big. So what I can do here is, because I've spread props and the Notion logo, I can go ahead to add a box size to this Notion logo, right? And this will specify the actual size I want my logo to be. So I'm going to add a box size. Is a style prop from Chakra UI, and these are the perks of using a framework or a component library like Chakra UI. So I'm just going to give it a size of 24. And you notice I said 24 and not 24 pixels. So at this point, I want to explain the scaling value of Chakra UI. So Chakra UI by default allows you to have a scaling value or a scale value of 4. So what this means is when you say one means 4 pixels. So a scale value of 1 represents 4 pixels. So a scale value of 24 will represent 24 times 4 pixels, and that's 96 pixels. So it helps developers to easily apply values without necessarily being explicit, and it also helps you to ensure that, for example, if you're using a design system that your scaling value is maybe 4 pixels, you can easily going to apply it in Chakra UI without necessarily always saying this pixels or that pixels. So me saying I want my box size to be 24 means I want it to be 96 pixels. Good, this is what we want. And then let's go on to apply a justify content because you notice that I don't have it. So in Chakra UI, using the short form, we can say justify content can just be justify, and we say space between, right? And then align items is align as a short form in Chakra UI. And I say center. So far, this is looking, it's getting, like it's taking shape. So what we want to do now is to apply a maximum width. You notice that the logo and the buttons do not span end to end on the screen. There's a maximum width that is applied to them, right? So we want to apply a maximum width on our flex. So I can go ahead to say, I want this to have a maximum width of, you know what, instead of us applying the maximum width on the header, how about we apply it to the entire app? Because you notice that everything has a maximum width, right? The same maximum width is not just the header. So let's go back to application and let's apply a maximum width around, the entire thing that will be rendered in app.jsx. So let's give it another box. And here we want to apply a maximum width to everything. So I can say I want this to have a maximum width of maybe 1100 pixels. And I can also apply a margin of auto to ensure that it is centered, right? It's not screwed on the left. So far, this is what we have here. And now from the design also, you see that this button here is small, but Chakra UI here is quite big, or is bigger than what we need. So we go back to our header.jsx and we make this button small. So using the size prop, Chakra UI exports 4 different button sizes, exports extra small, small, medium, and large size. By default, it gives you a medium size, but here we need a small size. So I'm just going to say size equals to small. Yeah, so it looks more like it. And then finally, when you look at the button, you realize that it's not looking this way, like the color is different, right? We want this particular color. And then this brings me to the concept of creating a custom theme in Chakra UI. Chakra UI allows you to create a custom theme. And this is very important because when you're working in an organization, every organization, every company has the way they want their website to look like. They have the brand colors they use, they have the fonts they use. They probably do not want this font or this color that Chakra UI exports by default. They want to be able to be in control of the design and the token management and all of that. So we can do that by going into main.gsx to define the tokens. So I have a couple of to-dos that we'll be doing here. So first is to create a custom theme with the purple colors that we already have in the page. So I will just say const theme and to create a custom theme in Chakra UI. And to create a custom theme, we need the extend function from Chakra UI. That's what the extend theme function allows us to override, extend the default theme. So I'm just going to import the extend theme from Chakra UI here. And then I'll be specifying the colors that I want. If you have multiple colors, you can always specify them here. And the theme object can take colors key, it can take sizes key, it can take I think fonts key, if I'm not mistaken. But you can always check the documentation for all the kind of keys that we can pass into this custom theme object. So for colors, I'm just going to say I want a purple, right? And then I will now define my colors here. So to make this faster, I've gone into this application where I've inspected the purple colors they have already. And then I'm going to be using a scale of 100 for the lightest purple shade to 400 for the darkest purple shade. So I'm going to copy and paste what I have here. So now these are the colors, right? These are the purple colors that we want to use, and it's all laid out here. And then we have a gray color that I'll probably be using towards the end. So let me specify the gray color here. I will just call it, it's quite dark, so I'll call it a gray dot 900. Let me just get some water. Okay, so now we specified what we want in the custom theme, right? And then what we can do again is to then pass the custom theme into a Chakra provider. We mentioned earlier that the Chakra provider gives you all the styles. It acts as the context that passes all the styles down to every component. So we can say theme equals to this custom theme that we defined, right? But that's not all. This is a custom variant of a button using the colors that we want for the background and the hover. So then we need to define a custom button variant, right? So to define a custom button variant in Chakra UI, we're just going to create the variant. For this, I'll call it a primary variant. And this primary variant is what will give me the purple button I want. So when defining or when modifying a theme of components in Chakra UI, there are two functions you need. You need a define style function and the define style config function, right? So for the define style function, we're going to use it here, importing from Chakra UI. This is where we want to define the styles of these particular components, right? The variant. So for now, I know that I want my background to look like this. And you notice that when we hover, there's a slight difference in background. So let's just go ahead to say we want our background to have the purple dot 100, right? And then we want the color of this, which is the text color, we want it to be white. And then on hover, we want it to have a background color of purple. dot 200. So you notice that instead of me using the hex value, I'm putting them here because I've already defined them down here. Exactly. So now I've defined how I want my button style to look like. And then I can go ahead to create a button theme. So I've just defined the variant. Now I'm creating the theme, right? So I'll just say const button theme, which is the name I'm giving my button theme. And then I'm going to import the define style config that allows us to specify the particular variants or sizes for that particular theme that we are creating. So I'm going to call the define style config here, right? So now I'm going to then pass my variants. I'm going to specify the variant, which is what I want as primary. So what we've just done here is created the primary variant, and we are saying that for the button theme, we want the button theme to have the variant primary. That is what we've done in these two define styles and define style config. And finally, now that we've defined the styles, now that we've defined the theme, right, the button theme, we know that we've just defined it. We are not using it yet, right? So for us to use it now, we're going to pass the components key into our theme. And then we're going to say that for button, we want our button to use the button theme. So in a nutshell, what we've done is we've defined the particular variant for the button. We've put it into the button theme. And then we are saying that throughout this custom theme object, for buttons, use the button theme. I hope that's quite clear. So now let's go back to our header. And now that we've defined the button theme and we want to use the primary variant, I can then go on to say, I want my variant to be primary, which is what I've already defined. So now, okay, I think I'm using the wrong color. Probably it's 200 and 300. I can go into my main, the GSX, and tweak these colors. This probably should be 200 and this probably should be 300. Yeah, this gives us what we want. So we've just completed the header section. And let's see, time is running really fast. We've spent 30 minutes here already. So let's see how far we can go with our next section, which is the hero section. So going into the hero section, right, I can notice immediately that we have a big heading, we have a subheading, and then we have these two buttons below here. So how are we going to lay it out? To lay out this, I would suggest we use a VStack. So VStack is a variation of the stack component. So stack is really a flex component that has a defined spacing between its children, right? So we notice that the spacing between the heading and the subheading and the button is almost the same. So it has a uniform spacing, and VStack has a direction column applied to it by default. So you know that all of this, it has a direction column applied to it. So that's why I'll be using VStack over just a regular flex, because this layout is not going to change on small screens. It will still be centered. So let's go out to build our hero section. So I'll make a component here and title it hero.gsx. And export, quickly create a functional component hero. So I'll start with the VStack, which is what I mentioned earlier. VStack from Chakra UI. So now we have a heading and we have some subheadings. So I'm just going to ignore this for now, and I'll just put the heading, which is introducing Notion AI. So I grab the heading component from Chakra UI, I import it, and I'm going to type in introducing Notion AI. Cool. So by default, when you use the heading component in Chakra UI, it gives you an H2 element, but knowing that this is the primary heading on the page, it should be an H1, right? So we are just going to say button as, heading as H1. So right now, when it's rendering in the DOM, it will be rendered as an H1 and not an H2. So also we can modify the font size to be big. I think font size is about 72 pixels, which is really large. And then, yeah, let's see what we have. Let's export our hero into app. And see what we have. Okay, so now we need to modify the color because it's not showing right. We can tweak the color to have a white color. So I'm going to pass this white color into VStack so that it's not only heading that has that color, because everything has the color white. So I'm going to use the VStack, which is the parent component. Now it's looking good. And then we can go in to grab our subheading. For this, it'll still be a heading. Remember, I mentioned that by default is an H2. So I'm going to paste this here. And then I noticed that there's no text align applied to it. So by default, it's scrolling to the left. I want my text centered. So I'm going to apply a text align center to the VStack as well. And now I can also decide to reduce the font size of the subheading. So maybe about 18 pixels. Yeah. Finally, we notice from the design that this particular heading doesn't span all through. It's just, constrained within this width. So I can apply a maximum width there. And by default, I always do not like applying maximum width to headings. I always like wrapping the heading in the box and applying a maximum width there. So I'm going to import a box component from Chakra UI, which serves like a div. And this is where I'll be applying my maximum width to. Just going to say maybe maximum width of 480 pixels and margin auto so it stays at the center. Cool. This is looking very close to what we want. And finally, we have these two buttons, join the waitlist and watch 1 minute demo. So we're going to create the buttons here. And another component that comes in handy here is the H-star component, right? H-star component is a flex component with equal spacing rather, but it has a flex direction rule applied to it under the hood. So we're going to grab H-stack and then I'm going to get the button component from Chakra UI. And the first is join the waitlist. And most times this button is probably an 8 directing you somewhere and it has an href. So I'm just going to put hash for now. And our variant, let's not forget our variant. Our variant is a primary variant that we created earlier. Okay, so we're going to duplicate this for the second button. I think what's the text? Watch 1 minute demo. So let's have this watch 1 minute demo. But you also notice that this has an icon, exactly, it has an icon. So I've imported the icon already here in my icons folder, but how do we use it in the button? So again, Chakra allows you to easily add in icons, whether it's to the left or it's to the right of your button. So now ours is to the left, so we can use the left icon prop from Chakra UI. And then it's a clear icon. So I'm going to import it from my icons folder. And then, so this is what we have here. Mini switch, right? And we have our icon on the left. If it was on the right, we use the right icon prop. So another thing you'll notice is that the spacing is too small. We can always alter that using the spacing prop on H-stack. So we give it a spacing of maybe 4. Let's see. Yeah. And then we give this entire stack a bit of spacing. It's too squashed up. So we give the entire stack maybe a spacing of 4. Let's see what 4 shows up like. So by default, You'll be working with a design, and these designs will have their, their sizes. So always check what the size is like. So now we have um okay, I have a typo here. Here we have our hero section already created, part of our hero section. Let me just tweak that. Yeah, so now what we want to do is this part. Let me know when the time is running. Okay, so just let me know when,
All right.
or let me know how many minutes I have left. Maybe how many minutes I have left.
I think we have about 10 minutes. So,
Okay, okay, we can complete our hero section in 10 minutes.
yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so one thing we can also do here is maybe give this a bit of margin top and bottom so it's not too close to our header, right? So I'm going to give it a margin top and bottom, which I can just use the MY prop for. So MY is just margin on the vertical axis, Y axis, top and bottom. So for this, I can give it a margin top and bottom of 12, which is 48 pixels, 12 times 4 pixels. Cool. So finally, let's add in these two elements. This is an image and this is a video, right? So let's add in this image. I have the source already, and I think I put it here in main.jsx. This is the source for our image. So let's grab it and we'll be adding it shortly. Going into Hero, I know that I want to add my image underneath the VStack. So I'm going to have to wrap this entire Hero with a box component, knowing that um, React exports one component. So I'll wrap my box around VStack and then import the image component from Chakra UI. Yeah. So knowing I have my source, I'm just going to have a source here. And then I'll also add in an alt tag, obviously for accessibility reasons. I'm just going to call this Notion AI. And then I can add an object fit to my image and use the cover object fit for the image, right? So let's see what we have so far. Okay, so it's taking shape, but at the moment we notice that this image is looking really big. It's quite bigger than what we have here. So we need to make it smaller, right? And we're going to use a maximum width for it. So we're going to give it a maximum width of, I don't know, 600, probably. Let's see. Yeah, looking good. And then I'm going to put the margin auto to it so that it stays at the center. Yeah, looks more like it. So we are making progress. And the last bit, which is what I would love to showcase, is this part with the video. So now just underneath it, I'm going to grab the aspect ratio component from Chakra UI. So aspect ratio is always useful when maybe you want to embed a video or you want to put, embed like a map, things like that, they have ratios. The width and height have some, confined ratios to them. So I'll just go into Chakra UI and I'm going to go to aspect ratio to grab it because I never put it in my head, right? I'm just going to grab this, copy it, and go back here and paste it. Now I want an aspect ratio. I'm going to take out this maximum width. Let's see what I have. Okay, aspect ratio is not imported, so let's import aspect ratio. Yeah. Okay, so this is what we have now. We can tweak it and remove this Naruto embed because this is Notion. So I'm going to make my ratio 16:9 because it's a common ratio for videos that look like this. So I found out that 16:9 works very well for it. So ratio 16:9. And obviously remove it from Naruto to Notion AI. That will be the title. And then I have my URL, the embed URL for something about Notion. So I'm just going to grab it and put it in, where are we? We're in here. Yeah, paste this link here. Okay, so this looks more like Notion. Cool. Now, finally, another last bit to notice is this is rounded, right? It has a border to it. So we give the aspect ratio a border of, let me say, 1 pixel solid gray. Yeah, so you notice it's like this, and then give it a border radius of um we use Chakra UI border radius. I think let's try extra large. So extra large. Yeah, so now you notice that the border radius is applied to it, but for some reason it's overflowing, it's not wrapping around properly. So to fix that, we are going to just apply the prop overflow and set it to hidden. So doing this will fix it, and you see that it has a very nice border and border radius applied to it. So yeah, I think with this, my time, I've come to the end of my demo. It's looking really good. And another thing before I end, I would just like to say that you can definitely go further to make it very semantically correct by for each section. For example, this hue, I can just say box as section so that when you're looking through, it's not just rendering as a div, but you know, okay, this is the section. And you can also go further to improve the mobile responsiveness. For example, if I wanted to have maybe small size on mobile screens, instead of having 72 pixels, I'll just do something like this and say on large screens, I want it to be 72 pixels, but on small screens, which is like base screens, I want it to be 32 pixels. So that way, if I shrink this, you notice that it stays and it looks good. So yeah, that is really how easy it is to use Chakra UI, and I hope this session has been very helpful.
Yes, thank you very much. There's been a lot of knowledge sharing for the past few
Okay.
minutes. Yes, I really learned a lot. So I have two, let's say, interesting questions.
Okay.
One is the team still considering bringing Chakra UI to mobile, React Native? Two, two,
Okay.
two is how do we contribute to, how does the general public contribute to the framework, to the platform?
Okay. Yeah, those are two very good questions. So the first one, I'll start with it. Are we considering coming to Chakra UI React Native, right? or whatever it is, I would say it's something that we consider at some point, and it's something we still would love to. But knowing how much resources we have in terms of manpower as a like the primary team, right? So that's been a huge constraint, and even with even with the web, it's a whole lot of add this component, add this new feature. So it's something that down the line we are still considering, but I can't give any firm, like say of whenever mobile will be coming to Chakra. Yeah. And then in terms of contributing, we are really, really looking for contributors. Like if you want to contribute, you can go to Chakra UI's repo, which when you land on the page, you can instantly um, get access to it. So right now we have, depending on where you want to contribute to, you can decide to contribute to the core code repo, which is Chakra UI. Or if you go into this organization, you will notice that we have Chakra UI docs also. So if you want to contribute to the documentation, you can always click here, whatever you want to contribute, maybe clone the site and see, make a PL and just make a PL, depending, right? There we have guidelines on how to contribute to Chakra UI, which is contributing.md. You just read about it, and once you have anything, you make a contribution and probably get your PR merged into Chakra UI. So yeah, we're always looking for contributors in any way, whether it's in terms of docs and even in terms of content creation, because I think that also remains of contributing, even if it's not GitHub. Any little thing you can definitely we have our arms open wide.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. It has been a pleasure listening to you and learning a lot about the Chakra UI component library and everything about building with Chakra UI. It's been a pleasure being
Okay.
here. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah,
See you
thanks for
soon.
having me. Yeah, bye.